Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Deniz.
What's wrong, buddy?
I've got this new tattoo and it somehow stings. It doesn't heal. I don't know.
Damn. But when did you get a tattoo? And what's the motive?
It's me! It's the Buddymeister!
I sure hope it stings. Because it stings! Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Deniz, the Buddymeister.
And today it's time for another specialty from India, the psychological horror thriller Game Over from 2019.
Game Over was directed by Ashwin Saravanan and it was shot simultaneously in Tamil and Telugu. It stars Taapsee Pannu as Swapna, a game designer who suffers from post-traumatic stress, which leads to her being terribly afraid of darkness.
Game Over is a horror movie that's also very heavy on its dramatic core. We learn that Swapna has been raped on New Year's Eve and that it was filmed and made public. And with the next New Year's Eve coming closer, her condition is worsening.
The movie starts in a gruesome and pretty hardcore way, with stalking, a beheading, and a body that gets set on fire. Then we jump 1 year ahead and Swapna comes in.
A lot of things in Game Over play like a mystery, where we don't quite understand what is going on and how the events presented to us are connected. But that disturbing and brutal murder at the beginning and the opening titles accompanied by this dark electronic music composed by Ron Ethan Johan pulled me right in.
It's a dark and uncompromising beginning, and it also looks quite real. I was eager to know what Game Over is all about, because the horror genre is a special one. Movies can bore you in a second. You always long for something new. There are things that you've seen 1,000 times. It's not an easy genre.
I think each genre comes with its own expectations, and it also calls for its own way of looking at it. And with a horror film like this, I'm most interested in two things. Is it doing anything new or clever or remotely interesting with its concept? And two, is it effective enough to scare you or give you a chilling atmosphere? And I think, while there are a lot of things you can criticize about Game Over, it does succeed in both those fields.
Yeah, it does. I didn't love the movie and I'm not really sure if I would recommend it either, because there are other horror movies from India that are just better in my mind, but Game Over is still a decent horror movie.
Well, I just took it for what it is, and when it comes to horror movies, I can be a bit more lenient and give a movie a little bit more freedom. There are certainly a lot of elements that are very stereotypical: Swapna's fear of the dark, the biker-like iconography of the killer, or the idea of being watched or even filmed. But most of it is used effectively enough to get a pass. And that the killer is this over-the-top looking beast actually worked quite well for me.
That's true. I also like the presentation of the killer. It's quite frightening. And it's also kind of nice that the movie takes its time before the killer becomes a part of the picture again. Maybe a little bit too much time, because after about 45 minutes or so, I thought that we were just treading water and not making any progress. It felt repetitive, but things turned around at the right moment.
It takes a while until the movie gets as gruesome again as in the beginning, but the mood of despair and anxiety that the situation is creating for a protagonist is also done pretty well, which can be attributed to Johan's brooding score, but also to Taapsee Pannu's strong performance as a woman who is on the brink of losing her mind. You can see that it was a really demanding performance, and I don't want to make fun of it when I say this, but Taapsee Pannu seems to be really powerful at playing suffering, with Pink, Tapat, and now this.
She does a good job, and it's almost a one-woman show, but it's also nice that the movie at least gives some weight to Swapna's housekeeper Kalama, who's played in a very warm and caring way by Vinodini Vaidyanathan. You really feel for her as well, especially in the end. No spoilers.
I think we can talk about a few things good enough without giving away where it all leads to. Game Over has a very surreal vibe to it, which for example shows in the portrayal of the killer. But at the heart of the story is a woman who learns to fight back, who challenges her fears and inner demons, and because of that I totally forgive the movie's rather simplistic nature. Or maybe even the opposite. I liked how straightforward it becomes in the end, and with just about 100 minutes it's also refreshingly short.
Yes, like I said, it drags a bit in the middle, but it's a fun 100 minutes with genuinely tense and thrilling moments. One thing that I really missed, though, was a kind of distinct atmosphere. The movie's exciting, but it never creates a world for me. Maybe because at the beginning and at some point during the movie, it builds this nerdy video game atmosphere, but it doesn't really do that much with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the fact that Swapna is a game designer plays a crucial part in the movie, and yet it never quite clicks completely. I think the movie too much much relies on the idea that it is enough to let the production design speak for the character. Swapna's room is filled with all kinds of gaming references. There are controllers lying around everywhere, posters from games like Grand Theft Auto, Super Mario, Contra and so on. Swapna seems to be this big gaming nerd, and yet there was something missing. She must have a big passion for what she's doing, but I couldn't really feel that. But I also acknowledge that it's probably not easy to combine this with the post-traumatic stress drama storyline, and I'm honestly also not completely sure if more gaming stuff wouldn't have been too on the nose after all.
Maybe yes. I mean, it's definitely interesting how they incorporated the dynamics of video games and the structure of video games into the last act of the movie. But it also lacks an explanation in my mind. Things just happen. It's okay, but it's also a bit lazy because, horror fans just eat it.
I don't know about that. You're probably taking it a bit too seriously. Game Over is definitely something different in the realm of horror, especially Indian horror. There are some tropes and unlikely occurrences in the finale, but I think in the context of a horror movie and this story, it still doesn't push it too far.
It's true, but can we talk about this strange scene where the mother tells the story of Amuta, the girl that gets killed at the beginning? It's shot in such a strange way, it really sticks out.
The revelation behind Swapna's tattoo and the way it is presented felt a bit forced in general, and I really can't say why it is shot in this TV report style. Maybe we are missing the meaning or some kind of symbolism behind it. Or maybe it's just to put it against the killer's violating, destructive way of filming, but I'm not sure.
You know what, everybody, go watch Tumbat.
Come on, Game Over is a good movie.
Yeah, it's okay. What would we say in German about Game Over?
Game Over erfindet zwar das Horrorrad nicht neu, überzeugt aber mit einem interessanten Konzept, einigen frischen Ideen und einer tollen Leistung von Taapsee Pannu. I give Game Over 7 out of 10. It's more like 7.1. But I don't do that.
For me, it's 6 out of 10. It's more like 6.2, but I don't do that either. Did you know that the maximum possible score in Pac-Man is 3,333,360 points?
No, who can ever reach that?
Billy Mitchell, the guy from King of Kong, the documentary.
But did you know that Mitchell is a very controversial figure in the gaming world and some think he's a dirty cheater? Anyway, what are your thoughts about Game Over? Leave a comment, and you can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram and Letterboxd, and also on Patreon simply at the Jimmy Cage.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at the Buddymeister.
And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like, and make sure you hit that bell for all we have to tell.